Recently, I watched a video of Dr. Mike surrounded by 20 anti-vaccines, which is very, very interesting. And today, I'm going to make a comment on that video. But I'm not going to make a comment about the substance or the content of that video. I just want us to learn about communication skills that Dr. Mike showed during his interaction with these people. And I think we can learn a lot from Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike is a board certified family medicine that's located in New Jersey. He is a social media influencer. At the time of me filming this video, Dr. Mike has 13.7 million subscribers. I have a great respect to Dr. Mike because despite being very, very successful, he continues practicing as a doctor. So it really shows how passionate he is of being a doctor. So I think we can learn a lot from Dr. Mike. I think his communication interpersonal skills are top notch. I would feel that if we as a non-US IMG have maybe just a 10% of his communication and interpersonal skills, we would have matched easily. So this video would be for you if you're a non-US IMG trying to learn communication skills. We will learn a lot from Dr. Mike. If you watch this video and happen you're about to go for an interview, and this video would be for you as well because we can learn a lot about some interview skills from Dr. Mike. And finally, if you just happen to be unmatched but you have good enough interview invitations, I would say about 5 give or take, and you still don't match, then I would think there is some issue with how you do the interview. You did not ace your interview, because the fact that you are invited by X number of programs, that actually means that a lot of programs are already interested in your CV. So it's just a matter of your communication and interpersonal skills to convince them that they should rank you high. So you can all learn from Dr. Mike as well. Now, before we jump into the video and making a breakdown, deep analysis of communication and interpersonal skills of Dr. Mike, I do offer clinical rotations for non-US IMG. If you're interested in doing clinical rotation and learn from me, there's a link down in the description below. I help non-US IMG to improve their communication and interpersonal skills because we are coming from a different language, right? Background, different culture. So I help you with that. We also come from a different system, so I help non-US IMG familiarize with the US healthcare system and the EMR, so you can review the chart the most accurate and most effective way. So having said that, let's watch a short clip from Dr. Mike surrounded by 20 anti-vaxxers.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Excited to talk about health.
I just had a baby, 7 months old. And, you know, my baby, I was like, no, I'm not getting any vaccines. The doctors came in. They made me feel like a very bad mother for not doing that, right? I was very pressured. And then I had a family friend who had a baby at the same time, was a few months in, gave vaccines to the baby. And the baby had seizures and has had seizures since. And I've also had a friend who I went on a mission trip with, and this pastor was totally healthy, two young girls, and this pastor literally got a heart attack out of nowhere, and the only thing was he took the vaccine, and there's many cases like that.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the birth of a 7-month-old. The fact that anyone made you feel bad in the healthcare system, I feel like is a failure on us in the healthcare system, so I'm sorry that happened to you. In healthcare, it's very difficult to predict the future because there are so many unknowns and there's so many variables in healthcare. There are things that are outside of our control, and we try to do the best with the limited amounts that we can control. So when we see two things happen simultaneously in healthcare, sometimes we think they have caused one another. But unless we see a pattern of that happening over and over again on a large scale,
Right.
It's more likely that this is just a coincidence of things happening at the same time. For example, I have a friend of mine who's a physician who vaccinates children very regularly. And they were about to give a child a vaccine, and before giving the vaccine, the child had a seizure. They went on and had more seizures throughout their life and ended up actually dying at a very young age because of a seizure disorder. The vaccine was never given. Had that happened 2 minutes later, what do you think would have been in the mother's mind and in the father's mind in that situation, other than, I definitely think that vaccine caused that problem? But it could have just as easily happened before, which it did, and the vaccine wasn't responsible. So it's very difficult when two things happen at the same time to be able to make an exact reason as to if that's what happened to cause it. So what we do is we admit that there's safety issues with vaccines.
Right.
They're not 100% safe. Nothing in life is 100% safe. Driving or walking here today is not 100% safe. I could have a heart attack right now. Cannot predict it. But what we can do is try to do the best that we can with the information that we have.
All right, see, that is pretty amazing. Okay, now we're going to break down the communication and interpersonal skills of Dr. Mike. We're going to start with nonverbal. One thing that I immediately noticed what Dr. Mike did is a head tilt. He tilted his head a little bit on the side. Now, this actually is very strong nonverbal communications to show to the other person that you are actively listening to them. This technique, actually, I use it myself during my clinical encounter with patients. I purposely, because I know and I have learned about communication and interpersonal skills, that I purposely tilt my head a little bit, just like this, or like that, whichever ear you want, to show that you are paying attention to the other person. So that's one thing. The second thing that you notice, here I can show you the clip again, that he is doing what I call the slow nod. He's nodding vertically. There is a cross-cultural thing that I would like to share with you. If you are from India, I noticed that your nod of agreement is not a vertical nod, but it's a side nod. So this is a cross-cultural thing. In America, they tend to use the vertical nod to show agreement. And this also shows that you are listening, and then people love when they see and notice non-verbally that you are in agreement. It's kind of like an encouragement for them. So it's important to do the nod, and then cross-cultural wise, you would like to do a vertical nod instead of a side nod. Okay, and if you do this, that means it's exhibiting a no. Another thing that I would like to describe about the nod is the speed of the nod matters. So if you do it too fast, it's like, okay, yeah, move on. It's like it's not showing agreement anymore. The one that shows agreement and encouragement is a slow nod, and that's what Dr. Mike did, as you can see in the clip. The next thing that Dr. Mike did is leaning forward. Lean forward a little bit. That shows enthusiasm, that shows that you're trying to listen and then pay attention to the other person. You don't need to lean forward that much. That was my mistake. That was back in the days during my residency. I lean forward so much, there is no need to. It doesn't seem like you relax. You just need to lean forward a little bit to show that you are paying attention. To head tilt, not leaning forward, that really showing that you are listening to someone. And when Dr. Mike is explaining, as you can see here, he is using a lot of hand gestures. Hand gestures is very, very important. Now, this is, I think, one thing that's a lot of people is missing when they are doing the virtual interview, because they're only showing a flying head without actually showing their hands. I think that is a big missed opportunity. I think they should be able to see your hands as well, and you can use the hand gestures to explain when you try to answer whatever questions the interviewer throw at you. So you want to use your hands. So Dr. Mike using his hands purposely a lot, and that really helps the communications, helps to communicate warm, helps to communicate competence as well. So those are the non-verbal techniques that I can observe during this interaction with Dr. Mike. Now, let's move on to the verbal. Dr. Mike exhibits a perfect volume. He has a very clear speech. His volume is great. It showed confidence. If your volume is too low, just like an intern who is just starting doing the rounds, and then he's not sure about the patients, and then so his voice become really small, that does not show any confidence. But he has a great volume. When he speaks, it's very clear, people can understand him, and that showed confidence. So that's very, very important when you do interview as well. You want to exhibit confidence by having enough volume. Another thing is the pitch. This is also a big thing for a lot of non-US IMG.
They're not 100% safe. Nothing in life is 100% safe. Driving or walking here today is not 100% safe. I could have a heart attack right now.
As you notice, Dr. Mike used a wide range of pitch. Sometimes he goes up on the pitch, sometimes he goes down on the pitch when he tries to make a certain point. Now that is very, very important. A lot of non-US IMG is very monotone on the voice. Look, what makes music is so interesting, or piano, let's say piano, because piano has an 88 keys that make it so interesting, is because you have 88 keys and you're going up and down the keys when you play a certain piece or certain music, certain songs. That creates the dynamic. If you play only like 2 or 3 notes, which is the C, D, and E, then the song will not be as interesting. At the same thing with your voice, you want to use a wide range of pitch, going down and up, just like how Dr. Mike did it. Now, another thing is Dr. Mike's tone. He is very energetic. He's very enthusiastic. He is very optimistic. He showed that everything, all of that into his voice. He's really trying to convince and explain the other person who sit across him about his stance related to the vaccines. I would say you should show the same enthusiasm as well when you do an interview or speak with people, and because your emotion will manifest in your voice. So if you are happy, then your voice will sound happy. If you're excited, then your voice will sound excited. If you're enthusiastic, then the voice will sound enthusiastic. If you're interested in the program, then your voice will manifest the same. So make sure you have that emotion in your brain when you're trying to speak to the other person. The next thing that is, I would say, very, very hard to do, and I don't think I would really be able to do this because this is high pressure. You are alone, you're surrounded by 20 people that has completely different opinion than you, is the filler words. There will be a lot of filler words if I would say, if I sit in the center of that seat, like you know, I mean, I think, yeah, you know, there is a lot of filler words that will really rip out the authority. It will rip you out from sending the message. It will distract people from getting the message. But Dr. Mike barely have any, I would say, no filler words at all. That is actually very, very difficult to do and requires a lot of practice. But that's one thing that I noticed when I did a mock interview with some of my students. They still have a lot of filler words, especially when they encounter questions that they didn't expect. Like if you see here, Dr. Mike encounter questions or statement or stories that he would not expect, and he has to respond to them. Can you imagine? That is very, very difficult, but he was able to do that without any filler words and do it perfectly. That's why I said if we have the skills, maybe 10% of the skills of Dr. Mike as a non-US IMG, you should be able to match if you receive good amount of interviews. Now let's move on to another verbal. This time we're gonna talk about the content. As you can see how Dr. Mike do it, he acknowledged the emotion, he acknowledged the frustrations first, and then he moved on to explain it.
The fact that anyone made you feel bad in the healthcare system, I feel like is a failure on us in the healthcare system, so I'm sorry that happened to you.
Now this response is very classic, what we call as heart, brain, heart rule. So you start with the heart and then you move to the brain, and then you can actually close it with heart. The way Dr. Mike responded to the questions, he started with warmth words. This helps to the other person to kind of lower the resistance a little bit. Even though this is a kind of a debate, there is no way Dr. Mike actually can change the opinion of the person that's sitting across him. But this is more for the audience, but it's still really, really helpful to acknowledge first, give some warm words first, and then we move on to the competence. And that is the reason why during the interview we say thank you so much for these questions. I found that in a lot of mock interviews with my students or watching other mock interviews of a lot of non-US IMG, you didn't put enough warm words when you're trying to explain something. Everything sounds really monotone. Everything feels like flat because you don't purposely put warm words. You need to use enough of these words to kind of prime to the other person. We learned a lot from Dr. Mike in this video, how he really put the warm words first. Another thing that we can learn about the content is giving example.
For example, I have a friend of mine who's a physician.
I saw this as something that's quite lacking as well during the interview, and that they forgot to do this. You see, Dr. Mike tried to explain that there might be no correlation between the vaccine and the seizures. And then he provided an example of his colleague whose patient had a seizure right before the vaccine is given. It's a perfect example to show that there is probably no real correlation between the vaccine and the seizures. And this is what I think some of non-US IMG lacking when they describe. I did a mock interview once with a student, and then I asked, what is your strength, or why should we hire you? And she described it's her adaptability, because she was from India and then now she comes to the United States and needs to adapt to a lot of different things, and she was able to adapt. But that's it. There is no example. Like, you need to give a real personal example. You should follow it with, for example, when I was, and then you give it that example. So that's what Dr. Mike did, and I think we can again learn a lot from Dr. Mike. You need to give example when you try to explain your traits. And finally, and I think this the most difficult one, is expanding your thoughts. That's probably the biggest thing, because the premises is very simple. We all know that the vaccine might not cause the seizures. Two events that happens might not cause one another. So we need to expand that idea. We can't just say to the other person, well, because there is no proof that vaccine actually causes the seizures, duh, So we cannot do it that way. We have to be able to explain it. And articulating the thoughts, the words, that's probably the highest level, and that is probably the hardest one. I think there is no other way other than practice, practice, practice. I mean, he has been social media influencer for so many years, filmed so many and talked to so many people, and that leads to his ability to articulate his thoughts very, very clearly. And what we can do here is practice, 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 practice. If you don't practice it, then you won't be able to do it. The only way to improve communication skills is to practice, but you need to be aware of what is actually good and what is actually bad, so you'll be able to have a continuous feedback and then improve that. So that is the video for today. I hope we learned a lot from Dr. Mike. I try to analyze it as deep as possible. I hope this video will help your communication skills down in the future. I will see you again real soon for more USMLE and residency match tips. Bye.